loses this round, it means, and Jim's one of the best players in the room, if not the best player in the room, it means that in 7 rounds he went 3 and 4.
Yep.
That's not a good sign when you're one of the best players in the room.
For right now, we're going to watch Robert Berni do battle against Jason Blackmore. Red-White Aggro is a very popular deck this weekend. It's the first time that we have actually watched it. And Blackmore is 7-1. Berni is 8-0. If Berni wins this match, he's our lone undefeated player.
And from what I could gather from the Star City Games Regional Championship last weekend, this was a very popular deck as well. There was a lot of red-white aggro. We've seen it a lot at the Open so far this year. It was our most popular deck in the day 2 of our competition in DC. But not much of it on camera thus far.
Yeah, speaking with Nick Miller, basically he told me that none of the name players are playing it, but we're going to see plenty of it tomorrow because there is a lot of it here and it's doing well. So we're just by sheer coincidence, we're just going to run to it like we are right now with Jason, who was 7-1 with the deck. He's got a Mountain and a Battlefield Forge. Berni has the Sylvan Carry added. Now, of course, Blackmore's the aggressive deck in this matchup, but you do something like this on turn 3 for Robert Berni, you're in a pretty good spot.
Though there really aren't that many cheap plays in the deck. We're looking at 4 copies of Secret of the Way, 1 copy of Soulfire Grandmaster. Those are the only proactive cards in the deck before the third turn. So this is actually not that surprising of an opening.
There's a Chain to the Rocks. Get that thing off the table.
And no surprise that Robert here is 8-0 when you think about all the times we've had Pelucranos on camera and how awesome it's been every single time. He's played against a lot of non-black decks where it's caused all sorts of headaches.
Well, as you like to say, metagames are eco-cycles.
Yep.
Or ecosystems, excuse me. And as a result, it might be time for Pelucranos and devotion strategies to shine.
Pelucranos, when the entire metagame is things like Abzan Charm and Hero's Downfall, kind of nonsense.
There's Outpost Siege. Cons it is.
But when it's a bunch of green and red creature decks, Pelucranos is very powerful.
This card picking up in popularity very quickly, mostly thanks to this deck, as Berni's going to put a bunch of little mana accelerants into play. The cons part of Outpost Siege, at the beginning of your upkeep, you exile the top card of your library until end of turn. You may play that card, very Chandra-esque. The Dragons one, when you're ahead on the board and you play that pre-combat, there are no good blocks available, you can finish off your opponent.
And I would imagine in token mirror matches, the Dragons part is very, very potent.
That top card is a mountain, so that's a free land. Now it's time to generate all the value.
Though Jason probably can't contain Robert's mana. We saw this spot, previous with Danny Jessup, where he's just got to hope that nothing too bad happens, because even if he kills a mana creature or 2, that's not going to make much of an impact on what Robert can do next turn.
Hordeling Outburst will be cast. 3 Goblin tokens coming in. Mountain will come in as well. We'll see if there's anything else to do here for Blackmore.
Again, maybe he wants to follow up with a removal spell here, but this still means he just has to hope that nothing too bad happens.
That's a Wild Slash. We're going back Berni's way. Does he have anything to accelerate into? His Pelucranos was handled, his Eidolon of Blossoms was killed as well. He's reaching for some mana, though. Looks like he's got something to do. There's Eidolon of Blossoms. Trigger, take a draw. Force is what he's picked up. He'll deploy it. There's an Elvish Mystic. Now there's a Stoke the Flames.
And no point in killing anything on this board, really, so might as well just go to Robert.
That's exactly what he does. Top card, Hordeling Outburst. Outpost Siege is getting to work. It's so easy to compare that card to Chandra, but they're different cards.
Well, you can't attack this, and that's a huge difference.
There is Hordeling Outburst.
When aggressive decks get behind on the board, they are so feeble, traditionally, at protecting planeswalkers. Outpost Siege is very different.
I think the one thing that people forget, too, is that you can't have 2 Chandras in play.
Yep, also true.
You can have 2 Outpost Sieges in play. And it's just easier to cast.
Yeah, it's a very different card.
Stoke the Flames is going to take care of the Eidolon. And now here's an attack. I know a lot of players have been putting up results with this. Mark Nestico winning a PTQ with it. I think of Sam Pardee. Ross Merriam played this in DC. But we haven't really got to actually watch it very much.
Correct.
This particular deck. So it makes you wonder what's all the talk about. Chris Van Meter playing this deck as well. But you can see, you don't need blue. Now, the blue cards, of course, Jeskai Ascendancy Treasure, because no one's arguing those go to power level. They're, of course, very good. But this deck can just be a 2-color deck.
And getting to pick up Chain of the Rocks, which is something the Jeskai deck can't play, that's a big deal.
Storm Breath Dragon now. Gonna cast that one.
How many losses have you seen Jeskai token deck where someone just gets ahead on the board, plays a Siege Rhino, and the Jeskai deck kind of fumbles around, can't get anything going in time? Chain of the Rocks, you handle it very cleanly.
Everybody's coming to the red zone. So a bunch of damage will come through there. Berni's down to 4.
And if you can't gain life or enter the Stormbreath Dragon, nothing else really matters.
Yeah. And he'll draw a copy of Pelucranos for the turn, but I don't think he has the ability to play Pelucranos and then fight in the same turn.
He may be able to play Pelucranos and then Crater's Claws away the Stormbreath.
Well, that'll work. Okay, that'll help too. There's another copy of Nykthos here.
But he's going to have to tap his Caryatid most likely to be able to cast this Crater's Claws, assuming that's his play.
Yep. No other red mana.
And that means that he's dead to basically any spell, because it's not just the Stormbreath Dragon, but it's all the tokens as well.
Here's a bunch of mana. So it looks like he's going to do maybe a little bit of fighting and Crater's Clawsing. Because Nykthos right now is going to drain 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. Crater's Claws for 2 will get the job done. So it looks like he's going to unwind a little bit here.
The problem is it's really hard for him to commit 3 mana to kill a token when it looks like he needs everything back on defense to be able to survive.
Yep. There's Claws. Oh, there's Stoke the Flames in hand. So if Jason has something, he gets the job done, and he certainly had something. So Jason Blackmore's going to win game number 1 here over Robert Berni. Red-White Aggro up a game here over Green-Red Devotion. Pretty impressive fashion, too. Didn't even get off to that great of a start.
Not really. No, I mean, it had nothing on turn 2. Turn 3 was just changing the Rock your Pelucranos, but still Outpost Siege did a lot of lifting in that game.
Sideboards we go. We will start with Berni. He's got 3 Nissa Worldwakers, 3 Nylea's Disciples, 2 Reclamation Sage, 2 Setessan Tactics, 2 Arbor Colossus, a Xenago Scott of Revels, and then 2 copies of Genesis Hydra.
Really excited by Arbor Colossus in this matchup, Setessan Tactics, Nylea's Disciple, and I think the copies of Xenagos have the potential to be good with Robert on the play.
I like Reclamation Sage a little bit too.
Just for Chain of the Rocks?
And the Siege.
Good points. Yep.
Yeah.
Reclamation Sage seems good then.
I don't love it from a attacking and blocking perspective, but I think you need answers to those cards. They're both really, really good.
Yeah, fair enough. And on Jason's side here, an Erase and Abzan Advantage, 2 copies of Valorous Stance, 3 copies of Glare of Heresy, 2 copies of Hushwing Griff, 2 copies of Arc Lightning, 2 copies of Sarkhan, a Circle of Flame, and a Scouring Sands. Really like the 2 copies of Sarkhan in this matchup. I think the 2 copies of Arc Lightning are good as well. I like the 2 Hushwing Griffs, as we know that Robert is playing with Eidolon Blossoms and that his deck is a little bit vulnerable to flyers, so I think Hushwing Griff probably does enough there. And I think the 2 copies of Valorous Stance as well. Robert's bringing a lot of huge creatures to the table. Not something that Jason can really handle in game 1 outside of Chain of the Rocks, but having a couple copies of Valorous Stance gives him some good answers.
It's still crazy to me that Sarkhan has been relegated to the sideboard. It's just not a card that's seeing like any main deck play.
Well, a lot of times in these beatdown decks, like Red-White Aggro, you're just anticipating game 1 being a pretty short affair, one way or the other. Post-board, most of your opponents are going to be bringing in more removal spells. The game's going to be a little bit slower, and that gives an opportunity for a card like Sarkhan the chance to shine. So it's not necessarily about Sarkhan's power level, it's just the nature of the decks that he appears in.
Well, game number 2 going to be underway here in just a moment. While we wait, we will talk about Next Level Magic, available yet again here in paperback.
Yep, Patrick Chapin, the Magic Hall of Famer and Pro Tour champion, back with his newest update to Next Level Magic, a very successful book. This is the 2015 edition with all new examples and some new content. This book in all of its forms has been sold out in paperback for over a year now, so it's back on paperbook, available on ebook as well, starcitygames.com/NLM to order your copy today.
Fantastic read. And it is available yet again. Don't know for how long in paperback, though. The first one sold out really fast.
It sells out very, very quickly. And Patrick Chapin as a writer is nothing if not thorough. So there's a ton of content there.
Best in the business.
The best.
I can say that with absolute certainty.
I mean, if you look at the significance of the content that he writes, the frequency with which he writes it, his longevity as a writer, I don't even know who's number 2. I mean, I don't think it's that close.
It's tough to say who's number 2.
Right.
I think he is far and away number 1 for what he's put together. And putting together a book is no small task, let alone updating it too. I just don't think he sleeps, that's all.
Yeah.
I know he likes his Mountain Dew and his Red Bull and stuff, so I just don't think he sleeps.
I think so too.
Yeah, who needs it? Game number 2 here. Robert Berni, our lone 8-0 player here. Down a game, though, to Jason Blackmore playing red-white aggro. The deck that has been picking up a lot in popularity versus the deck that is starting to actually pick up popularity this weekend. Devotion didn't really see much of it until this weekend. The red-white aggro, some would argue, is the deck to beat right now in Standard.
It has been very popular since Favorite Forge has entered the Standard metagame. That is definitely true. And we've seen little bits of it here and there even before Favorite Forge came out. Sam Black had some success with a deck like this. We've seen other people do well with red-white aggro.
Yeah, Sam Black, Sam Pardee.
Now it seems like it's, you know, perhaps the top player in Standard. Always hard to say because there's so many different decks, and it feels like it fluctuates from week to week. But right now, it seems like the most popular deck in the room.
Well, we'll find out if it can take down Green-Red Devotion. The first game was impressive from the red-white side, I will say that. I liked a lot of what was happening there.
I think so too. And it wasn't even, as you mentioned, it wasn't even the most powerful start the deck has access to. It was just some removal, then some Hordeling Outbursts, and Outpost Siege. And that was good enough.
Berni will be on the play here. Got up to a nice start last game, but his payoff cards were taken care of by some Chain of the Rocks and some time removal. Looks like he's mulliganing again, does not like what he saw. Blackmore gives a thumbs up, so he's good to go. I think Reclamation Sage plays a big role in things after sideboard. Just being able to blow up a Chain of the Rocks is a really big deal.
And I wonder how much consideration Jason's going to give to that card. Do you do something like cut Outpost Siege? I think Chain of the Rocks is way too good to touch. Outpost Siege might just be too good to touch as well.
Yeah, Outpost Siege was insane the last game.
It was, but part of that is a function of the fact that Robert can never kill it.
Sure. That's definitely true.
You probably don't hedge around Reclamation Sage too much, and you just present your same enchantments.
Yeah.
But this is another place where Hushwing Griff might be a very valuable contributor to Jason's plan.
That's true. I like the Griff idea. I just like having a 2-1 flyer in the matchup.
I think 2-1 Flash Flyer for 3 in this matchup is already good enough for Jason to play.
Yeah.
The fact that it does function against some cards like Eidolon Blossoms and Reclamation Sage is very good, of course, but a lot of it is just a function of how bad Robert's deck is at containing flyers.
There's your Elvish Mystic. We're underway here in game number 2 between Berni and Blackmore. Blackmore will take a draw. Wild Slash going to get that off the table. There is a Wooded Foothills. This is a Sylvan Caryatid. We'll see if it'll be a forest or a mountain. And it will be a forest. Mana Acceleration, Berni's got plenty of it. Mystics and Caryatids. Can't forget about Voyaging Satyr too.
And Caryatid really important in this matchup because Jason's equipped with a lot of cheap removal for the other Mana Acceleration. The Wild Slash you just saw, Lightning Strike, Chain of the Rocks, Arc Lightning in the sideboard. If his turn 2 play there is Voyaging Satyr, that might just get killed as well, and then Robert never even gets started.
Forest the draw. There's Courser. Take a look at the top card. Temple of Abandon, that's coming in. Time to scry, gain a little life on the way. Whisperwood Elemental. All right, we got a little something brewing now. He's leaving that on top, you can believe that.
And if I was on the fence about whether or not Valorous Stance would be good in this matchup, I'm now convinced.
Yeah, it's good. Here's 3 mana. Hordeling Outburst. 3 goblins coming in. We'll head Berni's way. Wishwood Elemental the draw. Wooded Foothills in. Trigger, gain a life. Sack, stay at the same. There's your forest. And we'll have Whisperwood here, likely in a moment, joined by a Manifest creature.
I really like that Hordeling Outburst is a card that gets played in Standard because you see some games where someone casts it on turn 3 and you say, oh my god, what is their opponent supposed to do? And there's some people, sometimes you see a cast on turn 3 and you say, that card is nonsense right now.
Yeah, this is one of those nonsense games, I think. I do love the interaction here between Courser and Whisperwood. All right, that land's out of the way. Now I'll draw a land for my turn, sure. But being able to just get some rubbish out of the way is certainly nice.
Yep.
It's just another way that green decks can ensure that they're drawing good cards. There's
some
temple.
Some more fanciness available to you with your fetch lands as well.
Mm-hmm.
And because this is a red-white aggro deck and not a mid-range deck, you don't have the option of doing things like convert to end hostilities or convert to Elspeth. So Jason's just got to try to answer this straight up, and it doesn't seem like that's likely to happen.
Now here's a Rabble Master. However, this is in the second main phase. That's something that's important there. By playing the second main phase, no, he doesn't get a Goblin, but those Hordeling Outburst tokens don't have to attack.
Exactly, though. Next turn, Jason needs to have a real big follow-up, or else he's just going to lose everything and deal very little damage.
Berni at 22, top card of the deck is an Elvish Mystic. Does have a copy of Genesis Hydra in hand that he could play for 4 right now if he wants to. Might be thinking he can do a little bit better than that, though. And there's the Hydra. So let's take a look at the top 4 cards. Elvish Mystic among them. Pelucranos 2, timely. So he'll shuffle up. The only thing he's missing from this puzzle is a copy of Nykthos.
Even still, Robert in a commanding lead right now, and Jason's deck, it's going to be hard for him to catch up to this.
You always have to have that thought in the back of your mind about a card like End Hostilities, but he's actually even okay against that because of Whisperwood.
Yeah.
See if he wants to attack with anything here. It does have that Morph creature in play. And we all know what it is, which is a land. So sure, send it in. What's the worst that can happen? Blackmore in a bad spot.
Just completely outclassed this game.
Yeah. You can see his hand. He has a copy of Wild Slash and Temple as well, but yeah, those cards are not very exciting. And it's almost like Berni has all bases covered on the worst things that could happen.
To some extent, Jason is just at the mercy of Robert's best draws.
Yeah.
When he has a carry added, that's something that Jason can't touch. And when he's ramping, there's not a whole lot for Jason to do. He's on Chain of the Rocks and Valorous stance is really his only forms of interaction.
And he has to have them.
He hasn't found him this game, and now you see what happens. The board's completely out of control. Even if Jason does find some removal spells, it's unlikely he'll be able to catch up because there's just too much bad stuff in play.
Yeah, this game has become pretty difficult for Mr. Blackmore. You can see it as he's analyzing the board right now. I forgot, how the heck do I get out of this situation of all these gigantic green creatures? You have 2 4/4s out there, and Whisperwood Elemental and Genesis Hydra, Pelucranos. We all know what that can do when there's a bunch of mana. Of course, you're building up a slow advantage. Same with Whisperwood Elemental and the Manifest creatures. One of the Manifest creatures right now is a Pelucranos.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's Outpost Siege, a card that was fantastic in Game 1. Mediocre in this one.
I mean, I imagine Jason's going to set this to dragons and then just try to get some value out of the combat that's coming.
But don't forget, what you can do with this is, when the creature's died, you can deal 1 damage to a creature or player.
Yep, but Robert's got a bunch of huge creatures in play, and he's at 22. So not a lot of good work to be done here, though. This is better than just having all the tokens die for nothing.
Yep, Goblin token, made by Goblin Rabble Master, and they're coming into the red zone. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Berni just says, take 4. Go to 18.
He may be able to just set up a kill on the way back.
Yeah, he's got Pelucranos in play. Well, there's Crater's Claw, so if it's not this turn, it's the next one. Yep, everything's coming to the red zone. Fight there.
Yeah, this is over lethal.
Yeah, I count 21, and that's enough to get the job done. Robert Berni's going to win game number 2 here over Jason Blackmore. Green Red Devotion, Red White Aggro. They're going to play a third one. Both these decks have had like their best draws in each game.
Yeah, you got to see. Well, Jason's draw game 1 wasn't that spectacular. Just Robert really wasn't up to very much. Outpost Siege was very good, and you saw the vulnerability that Robert's deck has to flyers. That game, you saw really the nightmare scenario for Jason, which is Robert starting off with a carry added. Jason can't kill it, and Robert just has good follow-ups the whole way through. Jason's really going to struggle to keep up in those sorts of games.
Well, game number 3 will be underway in just a moment. You see Robert's going to go back to the sideboard. Looks like Jason's doing the same. So we'll talk about our winter creature collection here at Star City Games. Came out at the beginning of 2015, and it's pretty adorable.
Yeah, some creature tokens and pins, past, present, and future here, with the you see the rodent here, the Eternal Witness, the wolf, and the elephant, all available in card sleeves, playmats, and dice bags. Get over to starcitygames.com/creature collection to order your items today, or just head over to the dealer booth at any Open or Grand Prix Star City Games is running.
I'm going to stop you right there. If you ever call that elephant a mammoth again, we're going to have a real... If you ever call that mammoth an elephant again, excuse me, we're going to have a conversation.
I'm sorry. The token's a 3/3, right? Iconically an elephant.
It's not the point.
Okay, sorry.
Would you like it if I called you Pat instead of Patrick?
No, but I don't think that's really the same thing.
Feels the same. What if I called you Bob instead of Patrick?
Feels even less the same.
That's what it feels like when you call a mammoth an elephant. It's not even close.
My apologies.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would never call you Bob.
I would hope not, because I wouldn't respond to it, because that's not my name. And it would make for some very awkward dialogue on the air. So, good call.
Now I kind of want to call you Bob. This is bad news.
Well then, just get ready for some silence. You're going to have to pick the conversation back up.
Oh, I'm going to have to talk a bunch?
Yep.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Big cost, I know.
I really don't know what I'm going to do.
Big cost.
These are our 2 breakout decks of the tournament so far. Green Red Devotion, Red White Aggro.
Though the Green Red Devotion list definitely more surprising. Red White Aggro has a bit of a pedigree in the format at this point. But Green Red Devotion in the hands of Robert Berni here, our last undefeated player at 8-0. Tanner Grace with a similar deck list. He had a deck tech earlier with Nick Miller over the sideboard. He's X1 right now.
Yep.
I'm sure there's not a lot of people in the room playing this deck, but some of our most successful players are.
Tomorrow morning, when we do our coverage, Nick Miller's going to take a look at all the numbers of the decks that make day 2. It was really fascinating to look at the numbers when we were in DC. You and I were really blown back that Red White Aggro had the most decks in day 2.
I would just guess some Siege Rhino deck.
Me too.
Obs on mid-range, most likely.
But it was Red White that had 11 copies in the day 2 at DC. Now, of course, we know that Gerard Fabiano won the tournament, with Sultai Control, but he beat Red White Aggro in the finals.
Yes.
So, Danny Goldstein was the player playing that deck.
Though this list has a little bit more staying power, I would say. Outpost Siege helps a lot in the control matchups.
And Danny's version was a little more aggressive. He had cards like collateral damage in his deck. We don't see that here from Jason.
Yeah, it was very much about, get a lot of pressure into play and burn you out, and a variety of token synergies.
Both players are going to start off game number 3 with some temples.
Jason's deck, much more of a good stuff deck, where he's playing the 4-mana spells as sources of card advantage.
There is a mountain. This is a Seeker of the Way. Berni will take a draw. Wooded Foothills is what he's found. He'll sacrifice the Foothills, play a carry added, an important card in this matchup for him, especially on the draw. A little acceleration here.
Yep, most of his other mana acceleration is just going to get gunned down by Wild Slashes, Lightning Strikes, and the like, so this is a big deal.
We're heading back Blackmore's way. He's got 2 mana, Seeker in play. And he'll start by attack. Predictably, no blocks there from Berni. He'll go down to 17. There's an Evolving Wilds. There's another Seeker of the Way and a passing of the turn. Let's see what Berni can put together here. It's a Courser. Top card, Pelucranos. We know he has a land, actually has a couple. He'll play a Forest, gain a life, go up to 18, pass the turn back. Blackmore going to sacrifice the Evolving Wilds. He'll go get himself a mountain.
And if Jason has some way to get this Corsair Crewfix off the table, Valorous Stance, Chain the Rock, Stoke the Flames, that's a really, really big turn here.
Yeah. And if it's Chain, it's like the biggest turn, because if he can do Chain plus something else in the same turn, heaven forbid a Rabble Master, this one might be over.
And Jason knows he's not going to be playing against sweepers for the most part, so he can be very aggressive at emptying his hand. That said, if he can't clear it off the table, Robert probably pulls ahead next turn.
Hell. Not the one we were expecting.
Okay.
In Obzon Advantage. But that'll work. Might be better than all of them that we mentioned.
That's the best one that it could be. One copy in the sideboard.
I did not see that coming.
I mean, it's a Corsair Crewfix Eidolon Blossom stack. It's on the borderline of being good enough to bring in. Not the card that Robert wanted to see there. At least trade with a Stoke or something, you know? Not this. Not like this.
Bolster 1 even playing a role. There's a Forest. It's Pelukrinos to try to hold the fort. Blackmore will draw. Does he have a card like Chain to the Rocks? If you're Berni, you just have to sit here and cross your fingers.
Well, it's not even just about does he have a way to kill the Pelukrinos. Do I just get burned out, too?
Yeah. Oh, you're blocking the big guy. That's where Pelukrinos is going. Lightning Strike. So there'll be some triggers, some life will be gained, some damage will be dealt. But Pelukrinos gets to trade with that Seeker of the Way. That's a big deal there. But getting burned out is a very real possibility now. Force the draw there for Berni.
Hard for Berni to win the game quickly from this juncture.
Going to sacrifice his foothills, go even lower.
Nylea's Disciple could be very helpful.
Does have 3 in the sideboard.
Obzon Advantage.
Did not expect it. I don't think Berni did either. Genesis Hydra for 4. Courser's a big find. That's a big find right there.
Can provide some life gain here, and if Robert finds Nylea's Disciple, it's a huge swing. And now things are getting harder and harder for the Seeker of the Way to attack. Jason is basically looking at burn spells at this point, or flyers.
Yep.
Because even if Jason has random spells, it's unlikely that Seeker of the Way is going to be much of a problem from here.
Caryata is the top card revealed to the Courser. We're heading back Blackmore's way. He'll draw a card. One thing that hasn't happened is land number 4. He's got a Whirling Outburst. That'll trigger the Seeker, though I don't think that's coming into the red zone. Jason opting to go with my token. Thank you, Jason. Pass the turn back. Berni draws a Caryata. Top card, the Courser. There's a land. Up to 8. Deploy a couple of knuckleheads. Just pass the turn back. No great attacks, though.
Yeah, Robert is thrilled that he didn't get stoked there.
Yeah.
Because that setup turn from Jason had all the look of a stoke and an untap another stoke, but Robert's going to get to play on it, looks like, for a little bit longer at least.
You mentioned that some games, Whirling Outburst is kind of an A+, and sometimes it's an F-. This game, it's like a C.
Well, Whirling Outburst is really powerful against decks that are built around removal, and Robert's deck isn't. He's so good at locking up the ground. And Jason has no way to augment his tokens, really. He doesn't have something like Jeskai Ascendancy to go crazy with them, so. He's going to get into spots like this where they just don't do a ton.
But they do enough of holding off Berni. You know, Berni doesn't get to have the opportunity to really make any great attacks here.
Yep.
I think that's what's important. Now, yes, Jason's at 34, but he gets to play a lot of turns in this game because he can just chump block your Genesis Hydra. Who cares? Crater's Claws, top card. These two digging in for a little bit of a longer game now. There's a Courser. This is one of the few times, too, where if Berni finds a copy of Nykthos, he might be in the driver's seat for a big-time fireball. I don't think it's a lethal one, but a pretty big one nonetheless.
Yeah, Jason has a pretty healthy cushion at this point.
Blackmore will draw. It's a mountain. That's an Outpost Siege.
Imagine we're saying this to dragons.
Oh, yeah. Robert's going to take a look. I don't think he's going to like what he sees.
Combo with these Whirling Outbursts that aren't very good otherwise.
Yeah, suicidal. Let's go. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, Outpost Siege, deals 1 damage to our creature or player. Now, of course, Berni's going to want to try to block with creatures that don't kill things. You know, that's the big trick. So the carry adds here are pretty important.
Are we positive there's no risk of Jason getting killed on the way back if Nykthos is the card after Crater's Claws?
Well, I didn't say that.
Jason always has the option of hedging a little bit by using one of the triggers from the Siege to take care of the Voyaging Satyr, which makes sure that there's no real risk, but...
Let's keep in mind, too, he's going to go to 37.
Yep. He's probably safe, but it just looks like... this looks like a spot where Jason's probably thinking, okay, this is we got this wrapped up in a turn or two.
Yep.
And I'm not positive that's the case. Because most likely the 2 Coursers are going to survive, as will the 4/4 Genesis Hydra. That's already 8 damage.
Yeah.
It's a lot of devotion in play.
Is there any reason for Berni not to just block as much as he can here? It's like if you let a token through, it's like, okay, well, it's just going to come through next turn.
Once you're committed to killing 1 token, you might as well put as much power as possible into all of them.
Sure. Doing a little math here. 2 tokens are going to come through, so Berni's at 6. 1 token's going to die, so that's 5, 4, 3. You know, he might put some damage a couple other places. Yeah, he wants to get Voyaging Satyr and Genesis Hydra off the board.
Yeah, I think this is a safe hedge.
Yep. So those are the 2 goblins that are going to die.
I don't know if I 100% agree with getting the Genesis Hydra off the table, but I do like the logic of get the Voyaging Satyr out there and prevent some potential disaster.
Berni at 5. Reclamation Sage? Absolutely. Been holding it for a while. Blackmore will draw. He's had a copy of Chain of the Rocks in his hand for some time.
There hasn't been a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm. There's Chandra. 1 near Reclamation Sage, 1 upstairs. It's not Outpost Siege, but it's still pretty good. Elvish Mystic to draw. Crater's Claws here.
And Robert is just pleading for some lands here to come off so we can gain 2 of these Coursers.
There's a Claws. Take care of that. Hoping not to get stoked or dragoned. Take a draw. There's a Chain. Clear that out of the way. There are your attacks. There are your blocks. It's an Arc Lightning, and that is going to do it. Jason Blackmore is going to win this match over Robert Berni, 2-1. Red-white aggro, maybe the most play deck in the room. First time we've seen it. Gets another W.
And by the looks of things here, it appears that we'll be entering day 2 with no undefeated players.
Yep.
Function of the tournament attendance was a little bit on the lighter side, 400 and change.